Speaking of your time around the Hall of Fame, this next question was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Rory in Shawanu, Wisconsin?
What? What are you saying?
Is it Shawanu? Shawano, Wisconsin.
Shawano.
In Shawano, Wisconsin, what I meant to say.
Yes, that's what you said.
I just saw your segment on a recent episode of WWE Storytime, exclusively on the WWE Network, where you were at the amusement...
How do we get that plug in?
He put it in his email. If that is indeed his real name, Rory from Shawano, Wisconsin, where you were at the amusement park riding the Ferris wheel, and fans spotted you and were waiting for you to get off so they could beat you up. Did you know you were recording the segment for WWE Storytime, or was it just a random interview? Also, will we expect any more animated stories from you for WWE Storytime? Oh, I didn't even realize this. There's an animated Jim Cornette story on the network?
Yeah, well, that's what Storytime is.
I don't watch it. I haven't watched it.
Well, and actually, they did tell me, no, actually what they asked me, well, do you have any strange amusement park experiences? And I just admit, no, they said this is for Storytime. And they do the animation thing where and I did that at the Hall of Fame there also. I don't remember if I did any more. It's been 3.5 years now. So I would assume if they had anything, they would have aired it by now. Like the hour and some minutes that they cut out of the Table for Three, where me and Eric sniped at each other a little longer, and et cetera. And then we just roasted Russo for about 30 minutes. But anyway, that was back in Charlotte. The story basically goes that, we worked every day of the week and twice on Saturday and twice on Sunday and blah, blah, blah. And days off were rare and precious. And I finally got a day off, and we lived in Charlotte. And this is my better half at the time. Obviously wanted to do something, some type of family something. I said, well, okay. And she wanted to go to the amusement park, Carowinds amusement park down there, right next to Tammy Faye and Jim Baker's layout and all that stuff. They had a lot of amusement parks in Charlotte. Anyway, so, okay, it's a Thursday or whatever, and I'll put the baseball cap on where I look like Ronnie Howard as Opie Taylor when I put a baseball cap on, and we'll go to the amusement park and we'll have fun. Well, that cap really didn't do anything to cover my face up, and I tried to, dress down the whole 9 yards. But as soon as we go in the park, the first thing we do is ride the Ferris wheel. Well, we get on the Ferris wheel, and you know how when you get on, they're stopping it at the bottom to put other people on, and then you end up getting stopped on the top. Well, now, as I've gone around a couple times, the kids have started to notice me, and they've started spreading the word. So now by the time I'm sitting up at the top, I can see the whole park, and everybody in the park can see me when they're pointing, "That's Cornette! It's Cornette!" Ah, shit. So as soon as we get down and get off the thing, we go inside into the skee ball, the arcade and everything, and it's dark and it's inside. The heat's off, right? They follow us in there. What the fuck? So then we go out the other side, and we're standing in line for another ride. And the line, at least it was one of those lines that snake around to where if you're not the people immediately in front of us or the people immediately behind us, you can't really see us and you can't get to us, right? So we're going to get on this ride. And as soon as we snakes around, and we're only like 15 people from getting on this ride, I look up there, I said, well, that looks like Doug Dillinger, who was one of Crockett's security guys. He was an ex-Charlotte cop, and he did camera work, and he also was security he was the one that jerked Sting down off the cage in Corpus Christi and blew his ACL. Anyway, I said, that looks like Doug Dillinger. I said, it is Doug Dillinger. And he was right in front of Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson. The day that we had picked to go to Carowinds was the day that they were finally doing the win a date with the Rock and Roll Express, and we're going to take you to Carowinds. I didn't know where they were going. And they've got the girls that have won the contest, and Doug's shepherding them around and everything. I said, fuck. Now we've got to go backwards because I can't have the people see me this close to the Rock and Roll Express. And if the people see me and see them, then they're going to have to come over here and beat the fuck out of me, right? So we start battling back against the tide as fast as we can to go back out the wrong way out of the line so that nobody will see me in the line with the rock and roll up there while they go off on the ride. And then we just went and got in our car and went home. And that was the experience of my amusement park visit.
I love the idea that some kid was there to meet the Rock and Roll Express. And they're like, you're not going to believe who was there in disguise. Jim Cornette.
Yeah.
He was on the Ferris wheel.
Well, because if they'd have seen me in the line, some of them would have thought he's trying to sneak up and hit him from behind. So anyway, it was because they took shit seriously in the Carolinas when Flair was in the plane crash and he was in the hospital. Wahoo was a babyface, Flair was a heel, but Wahoo was the guy who put the word in with George Scott, bring this kid Flair in from the AWA from Minneapolis. And he was a mentor to Flair at the time. He waited till late one night to sneak into the hospital and go up the back stairs to visit Flair, right? To try to steal kayfabe. And the fans, people, civilians weren't around. But when the actual hospital staff, the doctors, the nurses, whoever was on call on the floor, when they saw Wahoo McDaniel come out of the stairway and go into Flair's room, they called the fucking security and they thought Wahoo McDaniel is here to attack Ric Flair. And security came to get him the fuck out of there before an incident took place.
Even a better example from that plane crash, how serious they took things. Didn't they rush Tim Woods, Mr. Wrestling, back to one of the shows?
Oh, no. Well, that, as a matter of fact, that story is in Behind the Curtain, my graphic novel, the bestseller, by the way, available at jimcornette.com. Order before December 10th if you can. They didn't rush him. Woods did, because when they were all listed in the newspaper after the crash, because it was news in the Wilmington newspaper, and then it was picked up regionally and etc. Tim Woods, because he was the only babyface on the plane, had given them his real name, George Wooden. And he identified himself as a promoter. So in the actual newspaper clippings, which are reproduced in the book, George Wooden, wrestling promoter, is listed, and David Crockett, everybody knew him. He was one of the promoters also. But amongst the more in tune fans in the territory, rumors started going around that Woods, and they knew Tim Woods was Mr. Wrestling. He had unmasked enough, but the mask thing wasn't the issue. It was that he was a babyface. They knew, or they thought they knew, that Tim Woods had been in the crash. That was a rumor. So Woods checked himself out of the hospital and went back and worked not only a couple of short house show matches, but a TV taping match, so that it would air all over the territory. And basically nobody would believe that this guy, and I mean, he didn't have any injuries that really showed. I think they even did a thing because he was taped up because he had like rib problems, that where he was able to keep his he was able to keep his jacket on if his ribs were taped up, whatever, and do a short match. But the point is, nobody that would have believed that a guy that was just in this plane crash where all these fucking people got fucked up was wrestling like days later. And he did that a couple of times to be seen, once on television, just to fucking show everybody. And then he went back home and recuperated. But he felt that, and everybody was right, Jim Crockett Jr. actually paid tribute to him for saving his business. If at the time, the way that people viewed Mid-Atlantic Wrestling and the guys in it, and the credibility that it had with their fan base, which was huge at that time, everybody thought that if they found out that Mr. Wrestling Tim Woods was on the plane with all those heels and blah, 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 it'd kill the fucking business. And it may very well have at that time because of the way people felt about it. So he had to. So the title of the chapter of the book is basically the way that Ric Flair described him in Flair's book, The Man Who Saved Wrestling. Flair paid tribute to him. Crockett did too, as a guy who saved. He put the well-being of everybody's business and everybody's career and the health of Mid-Atlantic Wrestling ahead of his own, to try to make sure that he didn't ruin the credibility of the wrestling business.
When you say Crockett paid tribute to him, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, he said that. He made a statement. He said that he could never, I can't even call it off the top of my head word for word, but that he could, always remember and could never forget, as they say, the sacrifice that Tim Woods made for him and his family's business in doing what he did to prevent wrestling from being exposed in the Carolinas.